Okay, we've reached the bewitching hour. Welcome to the Township Board of Trustees meeting for Thursday, October 8th. And Ms. Lane, would you lead us in the pledge?
Yes.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome to everyone. It looks like we have like I mentioned before the meeting started, we have a full house. And again, we do have individuals waiting in the lobby that are waiting to make public comment, and we'll accommodate them as best as we can. What we're going to ask now for is for an approval of our agenda for this evening, as well as the items on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, so move.
Okay, motion by Ms. Lane.
Support.
Support by Mr. Mansour.
Discussion?
And yes, go ahead, Mr. Mansour.
So this, excuse me, this agenda was, excuse me, sorry, updated just over the last 24 hours. Can we do a quick recap of what the
Sure.
changes are?
Yep, we changed a couple of things. One is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but going through it, with regard to the item on, let's see, I believe the item K has been changed. That was a 3%. We changed it to 2.5%. We also inserted a couple of items. The board will discuss proposed wage changes for deputy clerk. Also, item J, the board will discuss proposed wage changes for the deputy treasurer. Let's see here. I think that's pretty much it.
Hydrocorp, Hydrocorp maybe?
Yeah, remember we had a couple of items we needed to.
Okay, that's right. Mr. Guzak, our treasurer, brought to our attention letter E. The board will consider a motion to approve an invoice payment to Hydrocorp for cross-connection inspections in the amount of $2,570. The township currently out of contract and will be seeking a new contract. Typically, this kind of expense wouldn't need the board approval, but we've had a contract with these folks for the last 3 years, and the contract expired. We're in the midst of getting a new contract with them, but in the meantime, we need to get this approved because it's part of a larger, it's probably about $90,000 a year that we pay them. So we need to make sure that we do that properly for our auditors. Item F, let's see, the board will consider a motion to approve payment to Fessler Baumann for the emergency sewer repair at Knollwood Apartments in the amount of $24,866.22. This repair occurred over the Labor Day holiday. This is something that, emergency repair that I approved, and as it says, it was an emergency, and we had to bring in an outside crew because it was so deep. So that's been added to the agenda as well, to pay that bill. Okay. Yes.
Have you finished, sir?
Yes.
Have you finished, Mr.
Yes.
Chair? I have a question.
About that item?
No,
Okay.
about the item I mentioned to you, Mr. Chair, about the permit, you know, when you
Yes.
pull a permit.
I've got that. We'll cover it. I have it.
Oh,
In
you
fact,
do?
Mr. Lloyd emailed out to all the board an
I got a
explanation.
copy of it,
Okay.
but I don't see it on the agenda.
Okay. I'll make sure we bring it up under my report, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for reminding me of that. Anything else that we need to make sure we have included? Okay, there's been a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay. We'll move on. We'll move to public comments, and what I would like to do is, how about if we move our way back so that we get the people in the room here as well? Anybody in the front row wish to make comment? Okay, go ahead. I forgot that you were sitting in front, otherwise I would have gone with the first row necessarily. This is my wife.
You will pay for forgetting. Good evening, everyone. I have very strong opinions on the horrific behavior of certain individuals sitting before us when these meetings were still being conducted via Zoom. However, I will reserve those comments for a later time because there is a very pressing township matter that needs to be addressed right now. The question before the board is whether any resident or condo association has the right to impose higher water costs on all township residents? The answer, of course, is a resounding no. The fact of the matter is that the fewer people on a municipal water system, the more current customers pay. That is an economic truth called economy of scale. If a township resident or condo association is fortunate enough to have irrigation and also has the means to drill a well for the purpose of maintaining their landscape, it is neither fair nor equitable that their decision forces his neighbor down the road to pay more for water. That neighbor did not have a say in the matter. The amount of savings realized by the one does not make up for the penalty being incurred by the many. If any resident or condo association opts to disconnect from the water system, every single township customer paying for water will see an increase in their water bill. It is believed that the average water customer would see an increase of approximately 3.5%. However, the full ramifications of this proposed disconnection policy will be explained in a presentation to be given by Raftellus, a company specializing in water rate studies. That presentation is scheduled for October 27th. It would be unconscionable and unethical for this board to move forward on this matter before that presentation and before that information has been made available to both the board and the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the front row wish to speak? Okay, we'll go to the second row. Yes, Ms. Grover. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Alice Grover. I live at 6405 Prairie Dunes Drive. As I understand it, Attorney Laddie has worked since last Tuesday to clarify and better define the wording that he was asked to draft relating to the proposed modifications to the water ordinance. I was glad to hear on Tuesday, too, that several trustees and Director Sears agree that any changes in the ordinance should apply only to residential customers and not to commercial ones. I hope we will have a chance this evening to hear Attorney Laddie's proposed wording. Now, last Tuesday, Director Sears mentioned that there are pluses and minuses relating to the effect on rates of some residential users switching to well water irrigation, but he didn't have a chance to elaborate. It would be interesting to hear what those pluses and minuses might be. Personally, I thoroughly appreciate one of the concerns that he mentioned, that the township needs to be absolutely certain that no cross connections are possible or have been made when irrigation system moves to well water. Fee-based inspections of changed systems are totally understandable. We also heard Tuesday that allowing residential properties to switch to well water for irrigation might result in up to a 3.5% increase in usage rates. That same figure was mentioned last February as well. But what we were not told in February, and have not been told yet, is what percentage of residential customers it would take. Customers willing to go to the trouble of getting the required permits, buying and installing the necessary equipment, and paying for the required inspections and fees. What percentage of those customers it would take to make any increase in usage rates at all. And mind you, any rate increase, if there was to be one, would be being paid by each homeowner in Grand Reserve, too. Like our fellow Grand Blanc Township residents, we don't want to see an increase in charges either. And finally, seeing as any modifications, particularly at Grand Reserve, would have to be phased in as time and finances allow, I've been wondering what predictions can be, or I suspect have been made, about the effect commercial development along Baldwin Road near Grand Reserve is expected to have on the township's water-related income and expenses. I imagine the township does expect to reap a net benefit from water usage at the Technology Village over time. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Grover. Anybody else in the second row? Yes, sir. Good evening.
My name is Al Johnston. I live at 9291 Sandhill Drive in the Grand Reserve community. I'm present this evening to speak about the water ordinance as it relates to using treated well water for irrigation of lawns and green areas. I am surprised and disappointed about the post on the township Facebook page. There seems to be a concerted effort to spread information that is not fully accurate. I would like to describe the Del Webb Grand Reserve community. It is not an exclusive place with giant homes full of rich people. In reality, it was created for people 55 and better who primarily want to downsize their homes, but to stay active and enjoy a beautiful environment while often on fixed incomes. We also maintain high standards of quality, which enriches the value of other communities in the area. We also take care of our street maintenance and the plowing of snow at no cost to the township. In Grand Reserve, we have 4 small parks, 432 homes, and an additional green space that contributes to the beauty of the community. The cost of irrigation for our lawns and common areas is extremely high due to the current ordinance, which forces us to use township water. We understand the value of paying for township water going into our homes, and we certainly do not want to change that arrangement. The current ordinance allows well water for irrigation, but not after connecting to township water. Hey, we got here as soon as we could. The developer controls all of those decisions until the last home is sold. They turned over the keys and the control to our HOA in 2019. How inconvenient for us and for every other planned community for the next 100 years who might want to use this type of water unless the ordinance is adjusted. Our developer did provide us, by the way, with 4 wells. We would like to use them. And with an investment to enhance our capacity, we would like to conserve a natural resource and to be cost efficient, just like the township did in one of their parks. We're asking for a fresh look at the numbers and how it affects all residents in the township. Unfortunately, some have made comments over and over about what they might have heard. And some have prejudiced the mere discussion of a change without hearing the actual facts. We are looking forward to seeing the numbers and to examine the information and the examination that was put into the study. Our plan is not for everybody. We want to do it correctly. We're willing to invest over $50,000 to make sure that we have done this job correctly and efficiently. And that would convert treated pond water to irrigation for our green areas. It has been said the nation that harnesses natural resources and energy will lead the world this century. I believe that. As you move forward, we will support the safe and cost-effective use of well water for irrigation purposes. We have been patiently waiting. Please consider the information in front of you, and thanks for listening to me tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else in the second row wish to speak? Okay, we'll go to the back row. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Could state your name and address and
Sure.
for the record.
First, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm Robert Mumey, 6510 Prairie Dunes, one of over 700 residents in Grand Reserve Sub. And I'm actually not going to be repetitive from my neighbors. I want to say thank you to the trustees and secretary for their hard work and diligence separating accurate data from inaccurate data over the past 11 months concerning our request to utilize our wells only for irrigation in our community. First, I would like to mention that our sprinkler system is now turned off. That's 19 taps and approximately 50,000 heads, sprinkler heads. as many others in the township. They're turned off for the next 8 to 9 months. I am 73 years old, have lived in Michigan my whole life, and I have never heard any mention of stale water when sprinklers are turned off over all my years until this year on this topic. I believe our new water line and treatment plant is very scalable and can adjust to any fluctuations encountered in our township water demands. Drain Commissioner Mr. Jeff Wright seemed to have no issue when asked about this 2 years ago at a presentation he gave in the police station right next door's auditorium regarding our thoughts to disconnect. As has been pointed out in previous meetings, a reduced summer demand may move the township out of the higher cost tier and offset the reduced revenue. Net change to the cost of water zero, if that possibility exists. Also, there may have been errors in a report published earlier this year where an estimated reduction in revenue due to people switching to well water, somehow that report did not also reduce the estimated expense owed to the Water Commission. Please drive to completion this amendment to the ordinance when this agenda comes up this evening. Once again, a very big thank you to those who support this worthy cause to save treated water for people. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the back row? Okay. We will, Mr. Boggs, anybody wish to speak? Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, my name's Joel Fike, 8109 Sawgrass Trail. I'm an over 30-year Grand Blanc Township resident, and I'm running for Township Trustee as a Republican. Now, you may know me from my work in television news. It was a career I loved, but about a year ago, I made the decision to step away from TV. Since then, I've been the Director of Development and the Chief Storyteller at the Disability Network. I consider myself to be an advocate for people with disabilities. If elected, I would vote to ensure that all people can live independently if they choose to, and that all buildings are ADA compliant. Now, here are a couple of things I stand for. Strong support of our township employees, the police, the fire, the DPW, the clerk's office, everybody. I'm in favor of controlled growth, bringing new jobs and an additional tax base to our township. I'm a lover of the outdoors and would support expanding parks and recreation for all residents. I would consider any measure that would lessen the tax burden on our residents. I would also attempt to lower taxes. I'm also a strong advocate for open and transparent board meetings. I value public input and would attempt to ensure all voices are heard. Finally, I'd like to help unite this board and this community so that we can be civil to each other and treat each other with respect. And one more thing, several of you are my friends. You are people I have a lot of respect for. I commend you, this board, for all the time and effort that you've given to Grand Blanc Township and to make it grow and succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pike. Mr. Boggs? Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, Larry Anderson, 6545 Kings Point Road. Good evening. I come to you guys tonight just to kind of make an introduction. Some of you already know me as well. I'm running for Township Treasurer this term. A little bit about me. My grandfather was born and raised in Grand Blanc. My father, I'm now the third generation raising my family as a fourth generation Grand Blanc Township residents. I love this community. I served on the board as trustee from 2008 to 2016. Did not seek re-election in 2016. Decided again to kind of throw my head in the ring and serve this community. I don't have any political agendas. I'm running as Republican, but I don't claim allegiance to any particular party for this. I'm doing it because I love Grand Blanc. I want to raise my kids here. I think it's a great community. I've always been involved in certain aspects of it. A little bit about what I've done as a resident. The millage for the fire department came up in 2008, the same year I was elected. I was one of the township board members who was appointed to work with the city council members that were appointed to create our first full-time fire department. We had it well organized and we had it funded accordingly. And unfortunately, over the course of a few years, that kind of broke down, and I was rather disappointed to see that it dissolved here in 2019 by this board, and I want to say by some of the city council who chose not to stick with that, negotiate as they should have, because I think the residents overwhelmingly approved that millage under the impression it would have a joint full-time fire commission for both communities. I also served on the zoning board of appeals. I served as the vice president of the fire commission. I served on the park and recreation commission, and I was also on, Supervisor, correct me if I'm wrong, this may not actually exist anymore, police committee, where we had a committee with the township. We had 3 appointed township board members that would meet once a month with the police chief and some of the police command staff to make sure everything they needed was provided, gave them a chance to present anything to the board that they needed, and we could kind of organize that. I was rather disappointed to see in an earlier meeting here where the police chief came to this podium and asked for funds to buy some bulletproof vest, and he was pretty much beat up because he was asking for money that should have been there all along. The money was in the general fund. At the same meeting, when they beat up the police chief for asking for bulletproof vest, some of the trustees decided they needed to give themselves a $4,000 raise. These are some of the reasons I'm running again for this township board. I want to get things back on track. I want to make this community, I shouldn't say it, I want to make this board be among the best it can be to serve this great community. And so, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Robert Emick. I live at 9424 St. Andrews Drive in Grand Reserve. And rather than just repeating what my neighbors have said, I just wanted to thank the board for their consideration of this issue of irrigation water, and to assure you that our motivation is be good stewards of the HOA fees that our residents entrust to us, just as you strive to be good stewards of the tax funds that you receive. So I look forward to the October 27th meeting, and hope, Mr. Bennett, that in regard to your comments on Facebook, that all the questions are asked and answered accurately and forthrightly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Emick. Yeah, we'll make sure. In fact, email me any question in advance if you want, and we will make sure we do our best to have them answered on the 27th. Mr. Boggs, anyone else wish to speak? Okay, Mr. Hurt. Good evening.
Good evening. Enter 7212 Border Road. How are we doing this evening?
Good.
I just, it's been a long time since I've been to this podium. Actually, I did a search on the website. I've been up to this podium 252 times. That's a lot. Anyhow, I just want to start off with the DPW and our staff does a fantastic job, all our employees. I was really offset when I seen this, that pay increases 6-7 months late. I don't understand that. We need to treat our people better than that. I don't know what happened, but let's get them their pay increases and move on, because they do a good job. They work hard for us, especially in these times. So I'm going to skip a bunch of these items because most of the people have spoken on them. I'm going to leave it at that. I just want to leave it at that. We got to take care of these people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boggs, anybody else wish to speak? Sure. You want to bring some chairs in? We have room for two. Okay, go ahead. Mr. Massey,
As you guys know,
if you can move your microphone down, Mr. Massey, just so we make sure we hear you. Thank you.
I have two comments to make.
Okay.
The first comment, I'd like to remind you guys about the water study. We asked for a water study more than 15 months ago. The trustees did. They kept procrastinating and wouldn't give us a water study. So I'm quite sure if you ask someone that was part of the procrastinating team, they would tell you, well, because of COVID-19, at least 6 to 8 months before COVID-19, we asked for a water study. We were promised that water study by the former superintendent that it would be here. And every time we raised the issue at a board meeting, it was always an answer and a reason why the study had not reached the desk of the board. So I just want to remind you that there's nothing that we're trying to do illegal. And I just want to remind you guys that Mr. Dan Potter came before the board. He gave a presentation about well water. If the residents get disconnected from municipal water and went to well water for the use of lawn water, the most it would be, came from our guy that we paid big bucks to do consulting work. He spoke here and said it would be most $300,000 that it would cost the township. And based on the research that the board members did, that wasn't not enough money to stop us for moving forward to get especially their wells. Because based on the information that we got from KWA concurrent with what we think there's a huge saving based on ready to serve. And I would leave those comments there, okay? But the second comment, Mr. Chair, my second comment is very disturbing. You got an employee here at the township, comes to work when she gets ready, Melissa Hoffman. You got Larry Anderson, part of the team. You got Jude Ridden, part of the team. And you got Scott leading the team. Now here's what they're doing to me. They are destroying my signs, and they got a plan before the election. They're going to take down most of my signs, my campaign signs. That's the plan that they have. Now several people have called and told me what the plan is. They said, Mr. Massey, you know that they're removing your signs. I said, yes. Because they got an employee here at the township comes to work when she gets ready. That's what I've been told. So if you got the supervisor heading up these employees to work against me and to destroy my signs, then I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think I should do? You got Larry Anderson. Been around for a long time. He just gave.
Okay.
He
Now,
just,
all right, cut. You are past your 3 minutes, Mr. Massey.
Everybody else had 5. Everybody else had 5, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
I
let's
got 2
wrap
more
it up
minutes.
because I'm not liking accusations against.
Well, I'm just telling you how
people.
it is.
Joe.
Okay, I'm going to.
Well, let me ask you a question, Mr. Chair. Do you think I like what you're doing to me?
I'm
Joe.
not going to answer loaded questions. It's. You know what? We're
Mr.
not
Chair,
going there.
You even have a website. Cannot can nobody get on that website but your little
Yeah,
group?
I have no website, but no.
It's your website. You call it the residence
All right,
website.
are you done with your comments?
But it's not.
If you want to have a discussion, I'll be glad to have it with you. This is not
Okay,
a
we'll
discussion
have a
period.
discussion then.
Okay.
We will.
All right. Okay, we're going to move on. I've got 2 letters to read here.
Was there anyone else in the lobby, Mr.
No.
Supervisor?
There's people in the lobby that they don't wish to speak.
I had a question though. I mean, everybody else was talking about water and stuff, but what I'm here for is the next thing. Do I still need to make my comment before?
Yes. Go ahead. If you want to make public comment, go ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
He's talking about the public hearing for Granville.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nope,
so
that's,
you can't have
okay.
a chance.
I'm sorry. I didn't know it.
I'll wait
Okay,
until then.
thanks.
Wait
Yeah,
till then.
wait until we have that public hearing. Okay, I have 2 letters to read. First is from Maria Hobson, 8389 Parkside Drive. I understand many of the arguments that the township faces due to the proposed ordinance for Grand Blanc Township. First, I'd like to state that the reason the Grand Blanc Township uses water from a source outside of our geographic boundaries. The water system here contains too much iron and is too hard and requires too much treatment. This iron in our ground turns our infrastructure and plant material orange from the iron deposits. Our municipality has also determined that the amount of water withdrawal from the aquifer under our township would deplete the supply of water that would be available to residents who have no other source of water. This depletion might draw groundwater from the landfill on the west side of the township. I'm sorry, this is not from Maria Hobson, this is Mr. Mike Yancho. May draw water from the landfill on the west side of the township. I am a farmer and a landscaper. From my observations, many subs in our township use too much water and irrigate too frequently and too fast a rate to merit a request to change their rates or other ordinance changes. Many of these residents need to get some opinions from some turf and irrigation specialists to find out how they can reduce their water bills, both as residents and members of an HOA, and that's Mike Yancho Sr. The next letter I have is from Maria Hobson at 8389 Parkside Drive. Here we go again. The first time I spoke at a township board meeting, I shared my concerns about the abrupt, unwarranted, purposely humiliating manner in which the 4 trustees fired Mr. Limita. Once a segment of my address was aired on the news, I guess I decided I had just jumped in with both feet. Since my original comments, I have been personally attacked by 3 of the 4 trustees. I have never and will never launch personal attacks on any of the board. I don't know any board members or Mr. Limita on a personal basis. I've never been to any of your homes, and none of you have been to my home. So how did this become a personal attack on me? I'm a tax-paying resident, not acting on behalf of the Grand Blanc Township Board. As the 3 trustees personally attacked me while on official township business, I hold Grand Blanc Township, as well as those individuals, personally responsible. The 3 have attempted to intimidate, harass, embarrass, and humiliate me simply for voicing my concerns as a resident and actively campaigning against them. As a result, you are tarnishing my reputation, which will cause me irreparable damage. I will hold you responsible. There will be a time in which all of this so-called evidence and proof will be requested. I assure everyone it won't be produced because it doesn't exist. It's just blatant lies against an innocent, defenseless resident. I'm really tired of all this, and I have a family who should occupy my time, not you. I'm not a politician. The trustees are out of control and don't run the day-to-day operations, so just stop. Residents, please vote for anyone except Joe Massey. Okay, so those are the public comments, and we're going to move on to our board meeting now. With that, we have a public hearing set for Granville Estates Special Assessment District, which includes Thrush and Robin, as well as, I guess, do we do these together, David, public hearing, or do we need to do these separately?
Let's do them separate if you don't mind.
Okay.
So first up, it looks like you have Thrush and Robin.
Okay. So anybody that wishes, I guess, do you have any information, Dave, you'd like to share before we move it to the public to comment?
No, other than the fact
fact that this is, tonight's the night when we're going to consider the proposed assessment roll. As we had discussed,
David, if you can move your microphone closer. Thanks.
As we've discussed, and Director Sears can confirm that this proposed project, I don't think it has a possibility of beginning this year, but it'll begin hopefully next year on the schedule. When it does, when it is constructed, it's got a design life of 15 years, which is good, which helps spread the cost out. And I think, Mr. Chair, if anybody, as people speak, if they have questions, I'll jot down the questions and we'll try to answer them at the end. And then you'll see that I think farther down your agenda, in fact, item number A is to consider the adoption of a resolution with the roll. So I think with that we can begin the process.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Laddie. Okay, with that, if anybody, we're going to open up for public comment with regard to Granville Estates Special Assessment District, which includes Thrush and Robin. So does anybody wish to speak with regard to that special assessment district? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
Richard Hart, and I live at 5396 Thrush Drive.
Okay.
Well, and my brother lives across the street at 5391. And I mean,
Can
this
I
has
have
been
your
going
address again too? Sorry.
5391 and 5396.
Thank you.
And I mean, this process has been going on for a long time. I mean, I don't know how many years and why it would make such a difference. But when this first started, the prices were, say, $6,000 a person per property. You know, then it came through after the bid and it said, nope, it's $10,000, which at that time, most of the people in the neighborhood said that was just way too much at that time. It's only been a year or two since then. And I'm sure that the reason that there's not a lot more people here tonight is because they probably don't even know that this was up here for tonight. You know, I just happened to have went on the website. You can go to the Genesee County Road Commission website and you can look up the bids. You know, they got like 6 bids or whatever for this project. And the price at $10,000, well, those bids, the best one is 21% higher. And they go like as high as 49 or 50% higher than what the original project was supposed to cost. So we're not talking $10,000 anymore. We're talking $12,000 or $13,000. And I mean, the more you keep adding on, yeah, you let it take 15 years. That's going to make it, some people seem to think that making the road a little bit better is going to make it easier to sell your house. Well, when they have to pay the bill every year, it doesn't make it easier to sell your house when their taxes are doubling compared to what they are now. I mean, $1,200 a year, or if you let it go 15 years, that makes $800 a year. That's, you know, probably 40% higher than what your taxes are right now. A 40% increase per year for the next 15 years. I mean, by then I'll be an old man. Not that I ain't already, but, you know. This road that we have, it made it this long, I don't know how. They didn't do it right in the first place. And they just basically let it go. I mean, they didn't do it right in the first place, and that's why it's not in halfway as good condition now. And I'm sure there has to be another way of doing it other than whatever's costing this much to do. You know, right now in this area, we've seen a lot of other roads. We've seen roads that have got done. It's like they come down, and 2 days the road's done. Here they're talking about taking weeks or months, I think, to do ours because they're going to try to redo it's a low traffic area. The houses aren't super close. There's not a lot of people on the road. You know, there's not like people driving up and down, going somewhere else because there's nowhere else to go except to your house and home. I just think there's another way of doing it, that there's another process that can be used. I mean, some people in other cities have used different materials to lower the cost. And right now, one of the main roads over that everybody has to take right now because of all the closures is Maple Road, and all they did was put some stones on it. And our road, if you did something like that, that would probably be more than sufficient for us. I just think that instead of just taking a bid that's so much over budget, that we need to look at other options.
All right, thank you. Yes, Ms. Hugo.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sarah Hugo. My address is 5545 Thrush Drive. Excuse me. I just wanted to thank you all again for the support that you have given Granville Estates on the Special Assessment District. As you know, I've stood before you many times begging and pleading for our roads to be redone. I believe on the agenda on Tuesday it said the estimate was $10,349 and some odd cents. That was for Thrush and for Robin. I could be wrong.
Is that true, Mr. Lady?
I think that is correct.
Okay.
That's what I have as my estimate.
Okay, which is only $349 more than it was 10 years ago. I think that that's reasonable, in my own opinion. We've lived in this on Thrush Drive for 20 years now, and I remember growing up in Goodrich, riding my bike down the road, taking our rollerblades, going for walks, and many of you have been down my street, and you know that it is a disaster. You do know this. My son and his friends play outside, and the portion of Thrush Drive that was fixed back, I believe it was in the spring, is the only section that they ride their skateboards on. So that is the best part of our subdivision. Again, I just wanted to thank you. I think that although we aren't real thrilled that it's going to cost us over $10,000, we both work in education. We don't make a ton of money, but we know that it needs to be done to make our neighborhood a better place. I believe it will increase the value of our home, and that is something that as a younger couple in our future, retiring in 8 to 10 years, that is something that will be beneficial for us. And there are a lot of younger people who live on our street who feel the same way. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to care to speak regarding the Granville Estates Special Assessment District for Thrush and Robin? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back here to the table. And David?
Well, so now if we can move on to the public hearing for Granville Estates Meadowlark, see if there's any comments on that. And then, Mr. Chair, then I think you'll find yourselves in operational issues, and these things are the first two.
Right. So anybody wish to speak with regard to the Meadowlark project in Granville Estates? Anybody wish to speak with regard to that particular project for Meadowlark? Okay, seeing no public individuals that would like to speak with Ms. Lane?
Mr. Chair, I just want for the record, I received no written comments on either one of these.
Okay, so Ms. Lane states no written comments were received for either. So we'll bring it back here to the dais, and Mr. Laddie, anything that we need to wrap up on that?
No, sir, you have a proposed resolution as item A to adopt the proposed special assessment roll for Granville Estates Thrush and Robin. And again, I want everyone to know that obviously with the late season we have, it's not going to be a 2020 project, likely to be a 2021 project. And I think, again, if any board members have any questions of me and or Director Sears, I'll be happy to try to answer.
Okay, Mr. Massey?
Mr. Chair, I have a question, and I asked this question at the last meeting to Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I would like for you to push hard to get this on the agenda with the road commission as the #1 issue for roads in the early spring, next year, 2021.
Which issue is that?
That's the one. We're talking about Thrush Drive, right?
Yeah, you mean to get it on the schedule?
Yeah, get it on the schedule.
Oh, it is. Actually, the residents preferred to have it in the spring, and that's what they're going to do. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's their plan.
Okay, question?
Yes.
To Mr. Laddie, probably. So just to recap here, what can you confirm what the, I guess, the original estimate was, I guess, per household for this? And then I think where we said it ended up is 10,300.
Yeah, I can't, unfortunately, I don't have that earlier figure. My impression, and Director Sears can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the bid price came in, did we end up 8% over what we originally had estimated? Is that what I have in my mind, once it was negotiated? Right around an 8% increase. So, so the current estimated per house cost for thrush and robin, including administrative costs, not interest, is $10,349.
So, and it's an 8%, so we don't need to go back and do anything. I mean, it's within the cap of the
Correct.
plus minus.
You're correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then and while we're on it, Meadowlark came in at, I have that at $9,257. And again, that's also a 15-year project.
Ms. Lane?
Mr. Laddie, would you, for the information of the people here, I think because we have expended significant money towards this, would the first assessment for these people be December of 2020 or December of 2021?
The first proposed collection will be December of 2020. So it'll be on the winter tax bill this year.
I just wanted for clarification for the residents.
Now what that does is, first of all, it reduces the amount that we go out for bonding, which is helpful. But then again, that 15-year period begins to run at that point in time. So it's not 15 plus 1, it's going to be 15 total.
Right. Mr. Massey?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Attorney Laddie. In that tax bill, that first year, how much will the taxes go up per se?
Well, so I estimated it, for example, at Thrush and Robin, it's $689.96 per year. So that's what you'll see on your winter tax bill this year.
And that's just the principal, right? No interest is on that.
That's correct. It's just principal. And that's an important point because we're not charging interest because we haven't borrowed money yet. But again, that will serve to reduce ultimately the amount that we borrow, and hopefully that will reduce, or that will result in a lower interest rate. And the other thing that we can explore as we get closer to the project date is if folks if they have the means and want to pay this off early without incurring interest, then we can make arrangements for that as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but I have a question for Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, speaking of interest rates, now interest rates are very, very low and look like they're going to continue to decline.
Okay.
At what time do we go out and seek for bonds?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, Treasurer Guzak, do you want to weigh in on that?
Typically, we don't go out for bond until we have the final bill. And then this one's not going to start until, the spring, so we will not go out for bond until we get that. So we won't know. We've got another project out there will be completed this year, they hope, by the end of October, but we won't go out for bid on that one until we get the exact amount also. So it'll be next spring is when they go out for bond on these two items.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer.
Okay, Ms. Lane?
Mr. Chair, if you're prepared, I would make the motion to adopt the resolution for the special assessment roll for Granville Estates.
Well, we need to
Rush and
let's
Robin.
wait till we get down to that agenda item.
Thought that's where we were.
We haven't adopted the minutes yet, have we?
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
So let's go to the next item on the agenda unless anybody has any questions with regard to the special assessment districts. I see a couple of questions here. I know we're done with public comment, but if you have a brief question, we'll accept it.
I just wondered which bid that showed you guys were using.
I'm sorry?
Which bid?
I'm going to have to defer to Director Sears for that information.
It's diamond estimating, but the bids on the road commission's website are not accurate.
So you let them
They've
change their bid?
What's that?
You let them change their bid? Is that what you guys
The
did?
road commission worked with the contractor for spring construction. So it's not 28% or whatever it was over. The bids on the road commission's
total amount or the,
Well, so the total amount that I have for construction costs is $647,206. And then we have administrative costs are estimated at $15,162.
And that's for both products?
That's not my
That's just one.
understanding.
Or is that just the one?
647 is for Thrush and Robin,
Right.
and then Meadowlark is currently estimated at $53,233 and $2,314 for administrative costs.
okay. So we're going to take care of the minutes next, and we need a motion to approve the minutes for July 28th, August 5th, August 13th, September 8th, and executive session September 8th, board meeting September 10th, another board meeting on September 22nd.
I so move, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion by Mr. Massey,
Support?
support by Mr. Mansour. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to operational issues. First item is the board will consider a resolution to adopt the special assessment role for Granville Estates, which is Thrush and Robin. Ms.
Again,
Lane?
Mr. Chair, I would make the motion to approve the resolution.
So move.
Supported. And any discussion? Okay. It's a resolution, so Ms. Lane?
Mr. Mansour,
Yes.
Mr. Guzak,
Yes.
Mr. Massey,
Yes.
myself, yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Item B, the board will consider a resolution to adopt the special assessment role for Granville Estates, which is Meadowlark. And,
I so move.
okay, Mr. Massey makes the motion.
Support?
Supported by Mr. Mansour. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Lane?
Mr. Mansour,
Yes.
Mr. Guzak,
Yes.
Mr. Massey,
Yes.
myself, yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yes. Item C, the board will consider a resolution to set a date for a public hearing to consider approval of the special assessment district role for the resurfacing of Grand Walea subdivision roads. Mr. Laddie?
Mr. Chairman, that date is proposed to be October 27th, and just so you know, we also have the same type of hearing set for the Grand Blanc Estates that same night.
Okay,
So
Any
moved,
discussion?
Mr. Chair.
okay, motion by Ms. Lane, supported by Mr. Massey. Any discussion? Ms. Lane?
Mr. Mansour,
Yes.
Mr. Guzak,
Yes.
Mr. Massey,
Yes.
myself, yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item D, the board will consider a motion to approve the replacement of the Township Hall ice melt boiler by William E. Walter for $25,680 and authorize Township Supervisor to execute all related contracts and agreement. We talked about this on Tuesday, and the boiler's over 20 years old, I believe, and we've spent some money in repairs in the past, and it's time to replace it. It basically keeps the front of our building free of ice and snow so that regardless of whether it's snowing in the middle of the day, we don't have to have somebody out there posted with a shovel, and actually not having to use salt preserves it for quite a few years. So,
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make that motion.
okay.
Second.
Supported by Mr. Guzak.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Mr. Massey?
may I ask Director Sears to comment on this? Because I think we have a few that were not here Tuesday.
Okay.
If you don't mind, Mr.
Sure. You want to describe the project a little bit?
Sure.
Mr.
So,
Sears.
as I stated on Tuesday night, this project replaces a aging boiler, which we did confirm was installed about 18 years ago here in Township Hall, which heats the front sidewalk out in front of the building to keep it free of snow and ice all hours of the day, so that even during late township board meeting nights, I don't have to have an employee here shoveling the sidewalk. We have the same system at the police station. It works well, so we would like to replace the boiler to keep it going.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sears. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Might have some questions for you on the next one as well. Item E, the board will consider a motion to approve an invoice payment to HydroCorp for cross-connection inspections in the amount of $2,570 Township is currently out of contract and will be seeking a new contract. Basically, this is something that we have to have in place in terms of doing cross-connection inspections. And basically, our contract expired, but we still had to continue with the work. And Mr. Sears is in the process of getting a new contract.
Correct.
For the board to review and vote on.
Correct.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Guzak.
I just want to make a comment. It's showing 2,570, and it's actually 2,757. It's just a typo error in there.
Okay.
Because if you go back to check number 91768, it's 2757.
Okay, 2757?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Sears? Okay.
So, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So do we need to read that motion to approve an invoice payment to HydroCorp cross-connection inspections for the amount of $2,757?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. And it's been supported? Okay.
Did Mr. Mansur support, or did
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think he was just confirming that in the motion we would have the amount.
Absolutely.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item F, the board will consider a motion to approve payment to Fessler Bowman for the emergency sewer repair at Knollwood Apartments in the amount of $24,866.22. This repair occurred over the Labor Day holiday. Any concerns or questions?
This was an emergency, necessary repair, so I move that the payment be made, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I think it was quite a deep project, right? It was below 20 feet or something like that?
Correct. It was a sewer repair that couldn't be achieved by my staff with our equipment. The contractor that we hired was the only contractor available on the holiday weekend. The other two that we contacted couldn't muster a crew to get it done. So that's what we were left with to deal with.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I ask Director Sears a question?
Sure.
Director Sears, a year, may have been 2 years ago, didn't we have a similar problem? Not at the same location, but it was at a different location.
Water main break.
We have had other, you can't say those three words together in one.
Okay.
We have had other instances where we've had to hire contractors to excavate for us or to make repairs, especially, it's more common on the sewer system because the sewer system generally in the township is very deep.
That's
So
what I thought.
my employees can't safely do that with our equipment and our safety equipment we have. Contractors that do those kinds of repairs every day are better suited for it.
That's where you have to install that, what you call it, for protection, so the walls don't
Yeah,
cave in.
yep. I know, it's, yeah,
What
the
is it
cribbing
called?
and that.
What is it
The
called?
cribbing,
Huh?
the cribbing.
Yeah.
Mr. Mansur?
So two questions. First, the amount here, it was performed like on September, I don't know, early September. Are we getting this bill late or on time or?
We got it a little bit late. By the time they added up all their costs and that, I think it's taken the time to get through the AP system also.
But it was below their estimate. I think their estimate
It
was
was.
29. and
Their
this is down
estimate was close to
24.
$30,000.
Yes,
so.
it was 29 something.
And the other question is, I mean, we have a contingency budget in your
We do.
department that handles this, and it's within that.
We absolutely do.
It's within the budget allowed.
Yeah, I have a budget line for these types of repairs, and we're within it still this year.
Thank you.
So there's a motion. We need a second if we're going to move
That's
forward.
correct, Mr. Chair.
I'll support.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The board will discuss the draft water ordinance amendment. And I guess I'd just like to start out saying that I'm not sure, Mr. Sears, if you know the date that we initiated the study, but we can get into that when we have the presentation on the 27th. But I guess my feeling is that with regard to this study is that we want it to be based on objective criteria. That we shouldn't be basing it on anything but objective information. And I think the Reftella study wasn't just that they couldn't work because of COVID. A lot of assumptions changed, and this water study is based on what we anticipate coming to the township in terms of new business, Obviously, some of that has slowed down dramatically. In fact, we're hoping that a number of businesses can survive this shutdown, let alone getting new businesses to move here. So a number of the assumptions changed, but the bottom line is, I think everybody wants this to be based on what objective information. And you know, there is posts on Facebook, on social media. I just want to be clear, there are a couple of different pages. One of them is called the Residents of Grand Blanc Township. That is not owned by the township. That is individually owned. And in terms of the township position, I think, you know, everybody here wants to make sure that the decision is made on objective information, and that's what we're seeking to receive on the 27th from Reftelis, who's a nationally known company that does this type of thing throughout the country. Mr. Laddie, I know you made a couple of changes from Tuesday. You want to just go through those briefly?
Sure, and the substantive changes included, and I'd hope that in the version that I have, I don't see my highlights here, but they primarily concern, obviously,
I have it on the screen, David.
Do you have it up there? Oh, perfect. The premises, the definition of the premises, we changed that a while back, and so that's not a new change. But what we want to do is expand that, make sure it included not just structures, accessory structures, or habitable structures, but also that it included fixtures, including landscaping. And then, Mr. Chair, if you'll scroll down further, that is, again, that's just recognizing that residential structures can utilize wells with sprinkler systems, provided that the Genesee County Health Department has approved the well itself. The township has determined that the cross-connection requirements, whatever they may be, are met at the township DPW level. And then, Mr. Chair, if you can continue to scroll. One of the things, if you'll stop there for 1 second and back up, you'll see that the letter K is highlighted, and that, I think this is more of a question for Mr. Sears. It says all supply and service pipes shall be of type K copper, and somebody asked whether that was, is there any magic to the K copper material, or is that just standard spec?
So type K, so copper is the material of choice for a non-corrosive, rigid supply pipe. Type K just refers to the softness and the thickness of the pipe. So type K is the industry standard for when you're using copper.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Massey?
I thought the question was, from the attorney, was that, is that also a township standard?
It is, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I think the next interesting section would be section 7, which has to do with cross connections. And again, Director Sears, you might be able to help us with this, because you would talk, I think, on Tuesday of the need to, you currently have a cross connection program, but you're also perhaps going to have to investigate a more rigorous program to make sure that there isn't any cross contamination of the supply with any groundwater. And you and I talked about in section 8 the state regulations, and that the state may be mandating specific cross connection programs for municipalities. If they do, obviously, then we have to comply with them.
Correct, yeah.
Even if they don't, though, one of the things we want to do is make sure that we don't have any potential for cross contamination. And so I think that you'll probably be developing with, for sure, with Mr. Potter and perhaps other consultants, including Rowe or other agencies, cross connections that make sure that, a program that makes sure that doesn't occur even if it's not mandated by the state.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. And then, Mr. Chair, the next section I think that everyone's interested in would be section 13. And what we talked about this on Tuesday. I have included the language, really simply the word residential, in the beginning of section 13 that says, residential premises are permitted to utilize a private well for lawn sprinkling and surface watering, subject to inspection/permit by Genesee County Health Department and the township. Premises using water who wish to utilize private well may disconnect from the township system, subject to approval/inspection of the well by Genesee County Health Department and the township cross connection, and make sure that township cross connections requirements are met. Here's a sentence that Mr. Potter asked that we include, and that was, prior to disconnection from the township water system, all irrigation meter pits and related appurtenances must be removed from the system in accordance with the DPW director's written direction. And again, Director Sears, I don't know, I'm guessing that currently there would be, again, equipment including meter pits that would need to be removed and off the premises.
Absolutely.
And so those are the substantive changes that we discussed on Tuesday.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Massey?
I have a question for the attorney and the director. I don't know which one.
Go ahead and ask, and we'll decide which one can answer it the best.
Yes. Okay, my question is, when we talk about...
If you could speak into the microphone too, Mr. Massey.
My question is, when we talk about inspecting a well, here's what I do know about wells. And if I'm wrong, you correct me, Mr. Expert. Okay?
No,
Please,
no.
please do that. Please do that. Because I could be a little wrong. The quality of water you get from a well basically depends on the depth of the well. Right, Mr. Sears?
I'm not an expert either. I would say in my experience, my own personal home, when I lived in Lapeer, yes.
Yes.
The deeper you drill, the better quality water. But that
So-
just depends on the aquifer.
Yes. The reason I'm raising the issue, when you do have the opportunity to disconnect, make sure you know how deep the well should be before you have it inspected and that you're getting good water. Because if you go down to, I don't know what it's really called, I'm gonna use surface 1. The first surface you hit and you get water, 9 times out of 10, that's not good water. A couple of things can happen. Your well can go dry, okay? But you have to go down to a level where you can sustain enough water over time regardless what the drought may be.
Okay. Well, thankfully, we will not be involved in the inspection of wells. I believe that's the county that does that.
That's correct, the health department.
Okay. Any questions for the board or any comments? I think one of the things that, yes, Ms. Lane?
Mr. Chair, I'm willing to adopt the draft for the first reading of the amendment to the water ordinance.
Support. Okay, there's a motion and support.
Mr. Mansur, was
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Thank you.
You know, one of the things that actually in 2016, I believe it was, that the board wrote the current ordinance or amended it. And it was actually because of a disconnection issue that we had. And so actually what you're seeing is the current ordinance anyways is because of a disconnection. So something we shouldn't take lightly because previous boards saw it as something critical that we should address. Also, this changes our assumptions in terms of our rate study, in terms of where we go with water and sewer in the future if we go this route. How this works, just so the public knows, I believe what you're asking for is this to be the first reading of the ordinance, which I know the term reading basically means that it's on the agenda as a consideration for the public to review and to consider. There has to be another meeting like this, and we schedule that, and that the public has time to weigh in, and then it has to be published. But so I think, you know, one of the things that I would prefer to do is to wait until we actually have the Riftellus information in front of us so that we can make a decision based on all the information that they're going to produce for us. I think that, you know, we had a number of questions come to us tonight from residents even in Del Webb that they would like to have answered. And I know that they don't want to see their rates go up or increase. And before I vote in favor of moving forward on an ordinance change, I want to see how that reflects on everybody's rates. I would like more than anybody to save money for anybody, whether you're a senior or a young family or somebody in the middle of life. You know, we have a number of seniors that come before this board during the course of a year asking for us to lower sewer and water rates because they can't afford it. We have young people that call us and say they can't afford their water bills or sewer bills. And so I guess this board has to act in the best interest of everybody, and that's what I want to make sure that we're doing. If we can affordably allow people to disconnect their irrigation systems and not cause other people's rates to go up, I'll be first one in line to do that. And water quality as well has to be preserved. There's been a number of questions on social media about why is, all of a sudden water quality an issue. I can tell you this, that actually with this COVID-19 shutdown, with the number of businesses that are closed, we're having to drain off water around the township to make sure that that water is moving. When you have a school building or any type of restaurants, hotels, you name it, that are sitting vacant, they have to flush the water through to make sure that we have fresh water in that system. Why does it matter? I've had the question asked on social media as well. Well, during the winter, when a lot of us are in Florida, Del Webb, or our snowbirds, why is it that it's not an issue then? Well, from what I've learned in the past month here with the shutdown and with us dealing with water that's not moving maybe as fast as we would like, is that what keeps the bacteria out of your water at home or at your business is the chlorine levels. The chlorine levels during the summer with warmer weather dissipate much quicker than they do during the winter. So during the summer, it's important and critical to our health of our water and your health that water continually turn over. And so I don't know how many millions of gallons we have on hand of water in our system at any given time. I'm sure Mr. Sears could tell us. But that water needs to turn over more frequently during the summer than during the winter months. The winter months in cold, cooler weather, that chlorine doesn't dissipate as quickly. And so with the shutdown, we've actually seen some chlorine levels, nothing that should cause anybody an alarm, but we have had to flush water at a lot of fire hydrants. When we open up those fire hydrants around the township, all of us are paying for that water. That water doesn't come out of those fire hydrants for free. When KWA or Flint or whoever, I guess it's KWA, sells us that water, or the county rather, Genesee County I guess I should know, sells us that water, they don't care where it goes, because as soon as it enters the township, we're paying for it. So if it's a leak, if it's us draining off fire hydrants, if it's somebody running their sprinkler, we're having to pay for that water to the county. And so my thought is that, and my vote will be to wait until we have all of the facts in front of us before we can make a decision that's in the best interest of all the residents. Ms. Lane?
Mr. Chair, for the public's information, even adopting a first reading, it will be published so that the public can read the ordinance. But this ordinance can be changed for its second reading before it's ever published. So we're not rushing ahead we're simply following the procedures of having a first reading. The second reading could be the night of the, after we hear Rep. Tella's report. So it's not a rush and it's not to scare anybody. It's information out there that the entire public can review and maybe even have more questions so that they are more confident when they hear the rate report. So
one of the things also in that I don't believe that Commissioner Wright, our water commissioner, cares to get involved in this issue, but I can tell you that in asking him, he does not take a position on this that I'm aware of. The other thing is that I know of no other municipality other than the city of Merton that has allowed individuals to do such disconnection. I'll just note that their water rates went up 30%, about 30% this summer. So they've had some issues with trying to keep up with costs. I did hear, so anyways, that's pretty much it. Mr. Massey?
You've been ready. But here's what I'd like to say. I'd like for everybody to understand. I'd like for everyone in this room to understand this very clearly. We have two types of standards. We have one for the rich. We have one for the poor. Now, let me explain it to you. This board has granted the rich an opportunity to drill a well. That's a fact. I call them rich because they got more money than than most of the peoples in Del Well. I'm making that assumption. So I just want you to be aware of that. We have granted opportunities for someone to drill a well, Mr. Stott.
Yeah, and I'll explain that situation. Go ahead.
Well, there ain't no situation to explain. I thought you would have told them that.
I'll be glad to explain it.
Okay, so if you read the old ordinance, you would learn that there was, the way it was written, and I think Attorney Laddie can verify this, correct me if I'm wrong, there was some opportunity in there to drill a well. Okay, so I just want you guys to keep that in mind. So, because the seniors are asking for an opportunity, okay, to keep their community green with all of the new beautiful homes they have. And I think as a leadership team of this board, we owe that to Del Well. We actually owe that. Why would we deny Del Well an opportunity to keep their lawn green, and then we give somebody else an opportunity to keep 10 acres green?
Mr. Laddie, can you comment on when we allow people to drill wells?
We have had requests, and we don't get very many of them, but they can be, there are circumstances in which somebody, for example, is putting in a new construction and they have not connected to our township water system prior, and they've come to us in advance and said, I want to hook on to the township water for drinking water, but I'd like the opportunity to sink a well for irrigation, and that's happened in my recollection maybe 2 times.
Yeah. And actually we did the same thing with Grand Reserve or Del Webb. When they first built the facility, they asked, hey, we would like to have some wells put in, but we would also like to have irrigation provided by the township, which we confirmed. Are you sure you want to have these 2 12-inch mains coming into your development for irrigation, which they confirmed that they wanted those. So we did allow them to drill wells at that time, and they do have wells that they utilize. The same as an individual that's putting an irrigation system for the first time or building a house. If they choose to put in irrigation at that time, they can ask us to put in a well for that irrigation. So doesn't matter whether they're rich or poor, whether they want to, or whether it's a development or not. If they're putting in a new system, we allow it. Mr. Mansour?
So I'd like to make a couple comments along this. And I mean, I think that one of the things that's important for this board is for us to make sure that we give our residents, we have fairness and we have choice. And there's nothing in this ordinance, previous or now, that refers to Del Webb. So this is simply an ordinance that says if you have irrigation needs and you want to transfer them from municipal to well, that it gives you the opportunity to do that. And so people will be making their own economic choices on that based on the cost of maintaining and putting in a well versus municipal water. So, but that's a choice that I think that we owe our residents. And I want to come back to a couple more points, but let me jump into the Reptelis report that was sent along to us. We mentioned in this, I think, Supervisor, you may have mentioned about what the study contains, but I want to point out that the rate study makes no projection on future use of water. In fact, they specifically mentioned in their methodology that they hold the volumetric usage of water stagnant. So we've seen growth in this township. We expect to see more growth. And so that would be one place where, you know, the study, while it has certain benefits, certainly doesn't address what would be the impact of future water use. Second, the study right now as it exists is 8 pages long after 15 months. There's no forecast on anything in the study other than the expenses. So I just mentioned before, it's just it's constant volumetric use. So, and there's also no mention of the well situation in the content of the report. So it doesn't address this well ordinance situation at all. And there's also no scenario analysis involved in it. You know, what happens if water use goes up a little, goes down a little, that most of us would typically expect in some kind of an analysis. And it also doesn't, and the trustees and the board has asked for this a number of times, it doesn't provide us with the starting point in terms of assumptions and where we're ending up today. So again, you know, this study, as much as it might seem like it would be very useful in helping us determine the impact of the usage of wells, or or usage of water going forward is really not going to be any use for us in that regard. It's going to take a look at our system as it currently exists. It already makes a recommendation here in terms of rates, but with no alternatives. So from my perspective, it might be good information, and I certainly do want to hear the study, and I certainly do want these other questions answered. But in terms of its applicability to what we're doing here, it doesn't really seem to make any difference. So just continuing on, again, I mentioned the fairness and the choice that I think we ought to provide, and especially I think it's important because depending on some of the assumptions you use in this. Mr. Potter made some initial assumptions in February. We talked to him about some changes in those assumptions. He didn't disagree that there were some issues in his original assessment that were not fully reflected. And so if you start to take a look at things like if these assumptions are not correct, if they're worst case, they talk about 100% conversion instantly of all commercial irrigation and making that as an impact. And again, as I mentioned, people are going to make economic choices. The people of this township can do that. They can do the math. They can decide for themselves whether they want to drill a well and maintain it or not for their landscaping. And in terms of the cost here that was mentioned, yes, there is a certain issue of economy of scale, but guess what? There's a certain amount of reduction of variable cost that goes along with this thing too. So it's not just like everything is fixed. So I want that to be out there. I want people to think about that because up until this point, you've been hearing one side of this, and we really ought to, the people on this board have been looking at this thing for months, have really given it some study. And I guess I'll just close by saying two things. First, we ought to be looking at our township and our DPW. I know Mr. Sears has done this before, but we ought to continue to look at it, of the improvements that we need to make. Right now we have, I don't know what the exact number is, 4-6% or something leakage or whatever. That's down from before, but we end up working on those and saving those. That's going to be a benefit for this township, and we ought to be doing it. And this is one of the things we can pass on to the residents. And then finally, from an environmental standpoint, there's plenty of people that use wells for irrigation today, and their lawns aren't orange. So, okay, it might happen, but as it works today, people's lawns aren't orange when they irrigate. And it doesn't make sense to me, I'm an engineer, so I'm at fault on this. It doesn't make sense to me to have the whole township go through the effort of fluorinating water, of treating it, of chlorinating it, simply to put it out on your lawn and have it mostly evaporate. So again, from an environmental, from a waste standpoint, I think this is it's something that is good for the township overall. And I think that we ought to be able to, if there are some issues here with cost, our system ought to be flexible enough to be able to size itself to not have stagnant water and to anticipate the growth. Like we have new houses going on along a bunch of roads, Baldwin, others. We got new developments going on. We got Magnet. We got all these things going on. So we will be using more water, and this is a way for us to make the best use of the municipal water that we have. So that was my comments on this. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, there was a motion that was seconded, I believe, Ms. Lane?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Myself.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll look forward to the report on the 27th. The next item on the agenda is something that's been in the works for a while, and that is a discussion with regard to the POAM, or Police Officers Association of Michigan contract, which is our highly prized police officers. And we have a few of them with us this evening, so thanks for the job you men and women do for us.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, that we approve the presented contract for 3 years that was ratified by the patrol, the dispatchers, and detectives.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion that was seconded. Any discussion?
Could we have that by roll call, Mr. Chair?
Yes. I just want to say that I know that the police officers union and their membership do a great service for our town. The police officer do a great service for our township, and one of the things that it's been negotiation going on for several months, but I just want to say that while I may not have been directly involved in all those negotiations, I just want to say thank you to the police officers and to their union for negotiating in such good faith and realizing that we're looking out for the long-term good of the township and not just short-term. And I believe that our officers and our entire police force see that as a priority. And the negotiations that we've conducted with the 3 police unions, the evidence is in those contracts that we're moving forward with looking at long-term costs and how we're going to work together to bring those things down and yet be able to still attract quality officers. One of the things that we want to make sure we have a great reputation of our police work here in the township. We want to maintain that, and the way we do that is by attracting quality people. So, Mr. Mance?
So, thank you, and I agree with all of your comments regarding the police officers. The quality of the police people that we hire here is critical, and I mean, we can see the downside when we don't have well-trained police officers, that the commotion that can create. So it's critically important. A part of that obviously is creating the right compensation package, and for my part, this has been honestly too long in coming. We found out about the expiration of this contract basically after it expired. And so we've been trying to get this thing approved back and forth, and this is, I think, a good result, but unfortunately long overdue. There's absolutely no reason that we are in October, 10 months after the contract expired, to get around to this. So I fully support it, and again, only wish that we could have gotten this done sooner. Thank you.
I don't know, we had their hand up first.
Yes, I did. Oh,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Massey?
Mr. Chair, I would like to say this from a leadership perspective. We have an excellent police department, but if you're not in the leadership, you may not understand this. I'm not degrading anyone. Leadership is about the leader. So what I'm saying is thanks to Chief Wiles. He's done an excellent job leading the team. He did an excellent job with negotiation. Thanks to Chief Wiles. Hats goes off to Chief Wiles.
Ms. Lane?
Well, I'd like the public to know that we have a diversified police department, because I was honored to issue the oath of office to the most recent 2 hirees, and they're both women. So.
Very good. Mr. Guzak?
Yes, I just wanted to thank the police department. They're awesome. They've always been that way, and thank you so much.
Okay. Ms. Lane?
Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Please pass on our words to your membership, and the rest of our department. Letter I, the board will discuss proposed wage changes for the deputy clerk. Ms. Lane?
Mr. Chair, I thought we were going to go into executive session for these next 3 things to finalize some discussion.
Mr. Laddie, I thought we were going to handle the clerk and treasurer out here, but what's your thoughts?
Well, it's up to you, frankly. I sent you 2 different written attorney opinions. If you feel that either one of these apply to these 2 topics, then that's fine. If you don't, then you're free to remain in open session and carry on.
Okay.
I prefer that we deal with the 3 groups all at one time in executive session, but I think if we go into executive session for this, there was an attorney's legal opinion that we received this afternoon that might need further discussion as well. So we'd have an executive session for items I, J, and K, as well as the legal opinion from the attorney that was received later this afternoon. That would be my motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Again, those are, it's up to you.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Lane, call for the vote.
Mr. Massey,
Yes.
Mr. Guzek,
Yes.
Mr. Mansour.
Yes.
Myself, yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I anticipate, just for the public and those watching the live stream on Facebook, that we will be taking action, I believe, when we come back from executive session, is my hope. And so I'm not sure how long we will be in that closed session. I guess if the folks here wish to wait around, Mr. Boggs, are you able to stick around for a little bit? Okay. But again, I'm not sure how long this is going to take, so I can't make you a promise that when we'll be back.
Usually at the end of, when we're going into executive session for Nikki, I simply email
Right.
her what happens when we come back
So
in, so that she doesn't have to wait around, so I don't know.
Well, the result of our executive session will be on our video and in our minutes, obviously. So with that, we will close this session, and we're going to adjourn to one of our conference rooms to meet in closed session, and then we'll be coming back here when we're completed with that work. Okay? I support.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Who
Okay.
wants to give me the time since our clocks are all off?
Right now it is
9:01.
Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen. All in favor?
We did that. Aye.
I'm sorry? We already took a vote and we said aye. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Mansour? Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to increase the deputy clerk wage by 2.5% retroactive to March 1st, 2020.
I'll support.
Second. Oh, you made the motion.
Yep.
You supported it.
Supported. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr.
Mansour?
Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to increase the deputy treasurer's salary to match the deputy clerk.
Support.
And then
Any discussion?
To March 2020, right?
To March 20.
Retroactive to March
First.
First.
March 1.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr.
Mr.
Mansour?
Supervisor, according to the agenda here, I'd like to make a motion to grant a merit increase of 2.5% to all department heads and non-represented administrative staff. This pay would be retroactive to March 1st, 2020.
Support. Any discussion? I just want to say that we held off making these merit increases due to the fact that earlier this year we thought we were facing a $1.5 to $2 million deficit. Thankfully, our department heads and other staff members worked with us. We held off making these from March, and actually by laying off about a dozen employees for several months, we saved money, and we're going to be okay now, it looks like, financially.
I'd like to make just another note here. I appreciate that, and in retrospect, it was, it turned out okay. But on the other hand, we've had these department heads with the expectation that they would get regular increases, and really these increases were frankly due before any of the COVID stuff hit. Right. So, we delayed it, but in all fairness, I mean, these things really probably should have taken effect much earlier. So.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Mansour.
One more motion. It's kind of related to this, but related to staff. I'd like to propose that we make a job classification change for Melissa Roberts to administrative assistant to the supervisor at the approved wage within budget. And this would be beginning when she commenced her new role.
I'll support that. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Well, there's a couple items that I know we wanted to discuss, I thought. I know one of the things was your permit discussion, but we can bring it up at the next.
On the next agenda?
Okay, and I'll also give a DDA update at that meeting.
Yes.
And an update, I know, on a few other things, but I think we can wait
Mr.
till the
Chair,
next meeting.
We also, when are we gonna look at the proposed 2021 budget?
Well, we have to approve by December, but
I know.
we're scheduled to be, we've got a calendar, and I will email out what that calendar is for looking at it, but I believe we're gonna be looking at it in November, but everybody, I think everybody got a copy of it, right?
Yeah, I gave
Everybody picked up a copy?
But again, we have only one meeting in November.
Well, actually, no,
November the 5th,
actually, not
unless
true.
you're scheduling other things.
No, we've got 2 meetings at the beginning of November.
When?
Within the, I don't have the calendar right here, but,
November 3rd is a Tuesday.
right, it's not the 3rd, it's, we have a meeting on the 10th,
Okay,
and we also have one on the 12th.
oh, okay.
And then we also have one later in the month on the 24th.
If the new board is confirmed based on this changing law,
Um,
we're
they-
off then, we're done at
Right, well, we're gonna,
11:20,
I
so.
think the township board will be confirmed.
Then I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Are we-
Support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.